back then I just kept thinking that, like, why aren't there like more, you know, like figurative interpretations about like more of like the stories around Benin. After a while, you just have to look at yourself and say, what about you? What are you doing? I guess that
Yeah.
was like the case for me. But
Mm.
then I could like draw and paint to a certain degree. So in a way, I had like kind of the technical ability, but what was lacking was the understanding like the stories and like narratives around like the culture. You can't just like, if you want to like create stuff around particularly like historical things, you need to like do your research. If not, you're just just going to be painting or creating work based on vibes.
Just a quick message before we dive into today's episode. I found something interesting in our data, which showed that only about 25% of our viewers are actually subscribed to the channel. If you've been enjoying the content that we're creating, if you've been finding it exciting or learning something new, I have a little favor to ask of you. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, as it goes a long way in helping us deliver more exciting episodes like this and create more valuable content. You're amazing. Hi Osaze, how you doing?
FG, doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's funny how you called me FJ, right? That's that's
Yeah.
actually interesting because now I've kind of rebranded to Mo, which is interesting.
Okay.
It's an interesting story. I'm yet to tell a lot of people, but yeah, today's not for that. But yeah, so FJ is also like my my name, but that's interesting. Yeah, and that takes me back to back then. When we're still in uni and all that, that's life. And seeing you evolve has been quite a journey. And seeing your work, I think sometimes I wonder, like, did we actually go to like the same architecture school, or were you studying fine arts in one corner
Yeah.
in architecture
Yeah.
school, or
Get that a lot.
did this just come off? I feel like it came out of nowhere. Like, for personally, like, I know you drew a lot then, but I did not see like you going like this deep into like how you're so immersed in the cultural and artistic, like the kind of Bini art thing that you've been doing. I mean, you've said now that it's more than that now, which I was actually I was surprised to hear, because that's what most people would be. I believe most people would have seen from your work, and it feels like your the way you've evolved in that, in becoming that artist. Like, people know, I believe people know you more as an artist now than anything else, as an illustrator, more than anything else. And, coming from architecture school to becoming this person is quite something. And I think, people need to hear how you how you landed here. So I think my first question would be that, how or when did you realize you were going to become an artist, and what was the moment?
Well, I mean, there wasn't any particular defining moment. It's not like as if I was struck by lightning or yeah, there's no crazy story behind it. It's just, I mean, I've been drawing since as far back as I could remember. I think
Yeah.
primary school, just seeing cartoons, watching cartoons on television, and you
Mm,
go back and try and like redraw your favorite characters, or even like newspapers. They had like this section that they did like cartoons, comics. So
true.
I was like pretty big on that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I just kept, um, you know, replicating my favorite characters, and somewhere along the line, I decided to like create my own stories. But that's pretty much it. It's not, you know, I won't say there was any particular defining moment. Like I said, at primary school, then secondary school. When I got into secondary school, still picked up fine art. Had like a really, really great fine art teacher. I'm not even going to lie. I think he played like a big part in like my development,
Mm,
because he would go out of his way to show me the ropes, have conversations about art. Eventually when I went to senior secondary, because you have to like choose, I went for technical drawing, not fine art, but still, he played like a foundational, very pivotal role in my development as an artist. And
mm,
I mean, after that, it's pretty much been me learning on YouTube and trying to like shadow my favorite creators. So yeah, not any particular defining moment, but I've pretty much been doing it since as far back as I can remember.
Wow. Man, like I feel like yeah, there's definitely something in terms of how you've evolved from like I said, from architecture to becoming like almost like a full-time artist now that you are. If I'm correct, right? You're like a full-time artist,
Hmm.
right? So I feel like there's been like I feel like there's that distinction between like someone that just draws casually and from seeing like how in depth like your illustrations are like the way you I see some things that you did back then that you're like doing like studies on like facial movements, body movements and all
Hmm.
those things. And I know those are like technical things. They're not things that you just be like playing around, just messing around, just drawing caricature or just doodling or something.
Hmm.
And I feel like, yeah, when you mentioned the fact that you had a fine art teacher, I think that makes more sense now that you had some technical know-how or like some influences as, some as background before like venturing into that space because it could be challenging. I can imagine how challenging it could be knowing that, there are already people that are already um there are experts in this field already at that time who are like doing great work, and then you come into that space, it could be like daunting to just start doing your own stuff. But I think the way you came in was a bit unique as well. Your dimension and your direction as well was quite unique. I don't think anybody really like did any specific kind of local Bini art the way you did it. So which brings me to like asking about how did you like discover Bini Art? First of all, like where are you from? Like how where are you from? How did you what was it
Yeah.
like growing up? What was the influence what were the influences of you coming up with that Bini culture, art, story, history thing? How where did that come from?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So just to like take you back a bit, I think you said something about not like you not thinking there have been people that like I think have done stuff around like the Benin. They've actually been I'm not I can't take credit for that. Like I pretty much building on what other people have done. So other
Okay.
people have created like artworks, in different mediums around the theme of Benin. So I'm not the first person to do it, and I'll definitely not be the last person. But I just wanted to like put that out
Okay,
there.
disclaimer. Okay.
But yeah, exactly.
All
But
right.
I think in particular, like I'm from Edo State.
Okay.
I grew
Of
up
course, makes
in
sense.
Benin.
Oh,
Yeah,
you grew up in
I mean,
Benin.
I grew.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew. I mean, I spent. I think like two. I think I primary one. That was like the last. And after that, I came to like Lagos, and I've been living like Lagos ever since. But
Mm.
while in Benin, I can still like remember a couple of things. I also remember like going to the National Museum in Benin, participating in like an art competition. Then
Mm.
very young. I think that was like in I was like in 1996 or 97.
Wow.
I remember,
Man, you're
going for
old.
an art competition. I mean,
You're already going for
but
art competition in
yeah,
97.
yeah,
That's
yeah. I
something.
mean,
Yeah.
and also like remember seeing like Benin artists. Although I was like really young then, but I can still remember like Benin artists.
Mm.
Seeing like artworks on the television. And then, like I said, moved to Lagos, and I've pretty much been living here for like north of 20 years now. But in particular, like going back to your question about like how the whole thing around like Benin started, I think we had no, not I think I know we had like because like in architecture school, like we had like this project that we were tasked to like design a theme park. That's for our landscape project. And
Mm.
I just decided to select because like people were doing um water park, different things. So I decided
Yeah.
to do a memorial park. And
Okay.
it was like in particular the memorial park was to commemorate one of like the past kings of Benin. I was like
Mm.
Oba Efige. And yeah, keep in mind, like prior to this time, I wasn't like doing anything related to Benin. In fact, I was doing like
What
lots
made
of
you choose
like
that? What made you choose that project?
well, because I was just curious, at the time. I didn't really know a lot. I guess I just knew like surface level things around Benin. I don't even think like I have like in-depth knowledge now, but compared to like back then, I just knew that kept hearing that Benin, Great Benin Kingdom, Queen Idia, First Act 77. Like, all right, cool. Let me design like a memorial park commemorating one of like the kings of Benin, Obasigi. And I started like looking online for references for my work, and like most of the things I was saying were like they have like the write-ups, then they had like the imagery that accompanied the write-ups were mostly like the plaques, the freestanding ivory sculptures, maybe like the first dark mass, and I wasn't really seeing, figurative paintings. It was just one that I came across back then that was done by Mr. Erabo Emopai. He's late now, but he, in terms of like artists from Edo State, Benin, he's really, really big. He's a big deal. um, he was also the one in charge of the art direction for the Festac 77, the actual festival,
Wow.
designing of the lamppost and, the branding. And his practice cuts across like graphic design, painting. And so I saw like this painting he did, and I was like, wow, like really, really stunning. Like even till now, I was like, I consider that work to be like a masterpiece. And
Mm,
so I just like back then, I just kept thinking that, like, why aren't there like more, like figurative interpretations about like more of like the stories around Benin? And
mm.
yeah, it's like after a while, you just have to look at yourself and say, what about you? What are you doing? I guess that
Yeah.
was like the case for me. But
Mm,
then I could like draw and paint to a certain degree. So in a way, I had like kind of the technical ability, but what
yeah.
was lacking was the understanding. Understanding like the stories and like narratives around like the culture. You can't just like, if you want to like create stuff around particularly like historical things, you need to like do your research. If not, you're
Mm,
just you're going to be painting or creating work based on vibes, and I didn't want to work based on vibes. So I had to like, as much as possible, try and like fill that knowledge gap, because once you have a clear idea on the or understanding on a particular subject matter, it becomes easier to come up with concepts or ideas. If you're creating like compositions for a painting, or even if you're doing like something in like graphic design, you know what to reference, the space to play around and what you can alter. And so that was like my own angle.
mm.
And so I started doing research. It's like really hard because like there's not like a central place where everything is stored, so you have to like start scratching around the
Yeah.
internet for,
I've
you
heard
read this
this
blog
over and
post, you
over
read
again.
this, you buy this book, you buy that book.
Yeah.
At the time there wasn't anything like that, but I had to like make do with what I had. And then yeah, that's pretty much the genesis of like the work that I've done. And
Wow.
that's kind of like what gave birth to like the paintings or the design works that I've done around Benin.
That sounds daunting. That sounds really daunting to even think about it. And I have a lot of questions for you from just from just these few things you've said. I think one question I have in mind is what has been the biggest discovery for you since like you started this venture? I mean, like the Bini Art side, what's been the biggest discovery for you? Because I mean, I'm not quite educated on this, on the
Mhm.
Bini art and culture. So what I'm curious, and I know there's a lot of history in that side of things, in that part of, there's a lot, just from seeing your work. I know about things like,
Mhm.
stolen art, things that have been, things that are returned, things like that.
Yeah.
So what's been like your biggest discovery? What's that one thing, one moment or one discovery that just made you like, wow?
About my own personal work, or like
About like
just
the
study
Benin
when
art,
doing research.
studying, like researching on the Benin art, and the history.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, I guess, kind of knowing that you stand on like the shoulders of giants, like they were, they were doing like great things back then. It's not just like, they weren't just like savages. Like, you look at like the works that were created back then and the level of sophistication and detail that
Hmm.
was achieved
You
with,
can say that again.
not like 21st century
You can say that
technology. So it's
again.
like,
That's definitely
yeah,
one thing that is
so
mesmerizing, man.
you know yeah, so you don't say, like
Hmm.
they get levels too,
Like, bruh,
they weren't just like
like when you look at the bronze work,
pushovers.
the bronze, the level of detail in some of the sculptures, like the masks, right? Those,
Hmm.
I wonder, like, how many hours, and this is steel, like this is metal, like
Hmm.
crafting those things and those details. Thinking about it alone is daunting. Talk less of seeing it and experiencing it. I believe you've been up close with some of these things more than most people. So like,
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
I'm just curious to like, and I know you've moved around a lot. Seeing you've spoken to people. So like, I'm still curious. Like, what was it like discovering, the in-depth, the amount of detail of the work that, because you just mentioned it now, like the amount of detail that have gone into these things, like back then, the
hmm,
sophistication of some of this
yeah,
work is just amazing, man. Like, it's like invaluable. You can't measure it with money, like in this day currency. So, like,
hmm.
what's been like the most fascinating thing about these discoveries to you?
Well, I mean, aside from the level of sophistication, it's just the fact that this. I mean, it's not like, so I don't sound like a broken record, but they are literally really, really important pieces of history that tell like a moment in time, because now we have like our phones
Exactly.
which can take pictures and all.
Mm-hmm.
They're like written scripts in some different regions, but then this is like, as it relates to Benin, there wasn't like any photography or writing, and like most
Mm.
of the things were documented through the art. So aside like the level of sophistication, there's also another layer that shows you that these aren't just pretty artworks. They're also like archival documents that
Mm.
tell moments in time, to actually tell you that this place and this people and these civilizations existed. Because like sometimes you might, I be can just think that is this just like vibes or like some tales by Mama, are they just giving us lamba,
Mm, mhm,
but yeah, you see that these are actually things, and some of the things, some of the iconography then kind of also like tallies with what's happening today. Even like when you look at like the regalia, the details in the regalia depiction that were depicted back then,
mm.
you can obviously see that there's actually a bit of similarity. So um it's not just vibes,
Not just
it's like
vibes.
actually rooted in something that actually happened.
Yeah, yeah. It's deep, man. It's deep, and I see like the cultural impact of some of these things as well. Like you just said, like I think it even extends to like music, culture. Look at the
Hmm.
mask. Is it a Queen Idia mask? Like
Yeah.
there's those masks, like people use them on like apparel now. People use them on like even in like modern day like graphic design. People like incorporate it
Hmm.
into like like a style. And the
Yeah.
impact is I think the impact is still here to see. So like let's backtrack now. Like for you, like growing up, what was it like, and how was it like for you? Like you mentioned that you were in Benin. You spent
Hmm.
like 2 years in Benin or something, or up to GSS, or was it primary
Up
primary
to
one?
primary one.
Primary one,
Primary one,
exactly.
yeah, I think
So
primary one.
like, what was that timeline like? Can you just give us like a short summary of like the timeline of your growing up and
Yeah, I mean,
influences?
as as little as I can remember, because the having like flashes here and there, but
Yeah,
Benin back then was calm.
and it was calm. Wow.
It was,
Okay.
yeah, it was calm. It's not like the whole like Lagos, hustle
Yeah.
and bustle. This thing was
Okay.
like calm. Um, People were like friendly, communal living. You greet your neighbors and all. As far as like influences went, I didn't have like a particular person, like when I went to like my secondary school, that I could point out my fine art teacher. But I guess it was me just absorbing as much as I could from the favorite cartoons you see back then on television,
Mm.
ITV Benin, to like the newspaper, or maybe sometimes when they buy like magazines, and I'll be looking at like the designs or the artworks, or maybe if you're even strolling across the street, you see like artists doing their thing. So that's really what I can remember, what I remember taking from Benin back then. Like I said, I was really, really young, and yeah, that's pretty
So
much what
like,
I can
so
remember.
after you moved to Lagos, I believe like your family, your entire family moved as well to Lagos, and since
Hmm.
then you've been in Lagos.
Yeah.
Okay, so like since then, like, so like at the point where you started doing like this Bini art, did you at any point like go back to like, do any kind of study or, did you travel?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I went to like two occasions
Mm,
to the National Museum in Benin.
okay.
Because then I was coming back. It wasn't with the same mindset as like the
Exactly.
primary one boy that left, and that was
Exactly.
also like the period where I started like doing research on the was after the landscape project I mentioned earlier. So I had like questions, because I always try. Like I have a book, I have several books actually. I just like write stuff if I have like ideas, write things. So I had like lots of questions for the curators there. And it was also like interesting to see the actual like plaques, at least the ones that were available in the National Museum, like one on one in person. Because then like when you're seeing something on photographs and when you're seeing like the actual thing in person, like
It's
it's
completely
not
different.
exactly, yeah, they're two different things. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. Got to like ask questions here and there. So yeah.
Oh. Okay, so let's talk about some part of your work now. So I think from some of the things that I've seen that you've done, I think your work has evolved, right, over the years. And as you said when we were chatting earlier as well, you said now you're kind of like delving more into other kinds of art. You're not just focusing on Bini art alone. Now you're just, expressing
Mhm.
yourself in different aspects, doing like gigs. You're also having exhibitions and you've done a couple exhibitions lately. So what would you describe yourself as now? Like, are you like, what would you describe yourself as? Are you just an artist?
I
Can
mean,
you
in
just,
general,
mm,
I guess artist is the word that encompasses everything. But
yeah,
I feel like it's pretty because like the work that I do cut across like drawing, painting, illustration, and graphic design. It's not just like painting for galleries. It's also like the graphic design, and the illustration aspect. Sometimes it's like drawing. So I can't really put myself in that box as like a painter. Maybe like people that went to school to study painting would,
mm,
maybe some could like I'm a um, pure painter, but like I guess based on my own background and like influences, I don't consider myself like only a painter because like you have to understand like 6 years in architecture school, and architecture school is
not
very
absolutely.
design oriented, like
Hmm.
you know people following grids, following like systems to arrive at the final results.
Hmm.
You seeing like when you have like juries, you see like different people's works and how they approach their designs to come across like a final results. You're not just like when it comes to architecture, you're not just designing based on vibes. I mean, I know I've tried to like design based on vibes like multiple times,
For
but like the
architecture,
lecturers will always yeah, the lecturers are always like, yeah, they'll put you down, and like rightfully so, because
yeah.
yeah, like, dude, this is not like this is actually physical structures that people are going to live in or inhabit. So you really have to think, and I think I would have carried that same mindset like when I create my own works, and then like
Mm.
after I finish like architecture, like working in the digital marketing space for like different brands, still
Digital
also following
marketing.
the same. Yeah, I worked at like a digital marketing agency after I was done, so
What did you
kind
do
of
for
like
them?
handle like projects. So I was mainly working as a designer, so we have like the copy from the content content writer, and then we try and like make sure whatever assets we send, whether it's for like the digital or print, try to make sure that it matches the copy that was gotten and is in line with what the clients are expecting. So it was a lot of like photo manipulation, working with typography and things like that, reworking assets for like banners, one-to-one aspect ratios, those kind of things. So
So like after you
yeah, I
finished
did.
masters, you went and like started like working in an agency as a graphic
Hmm.
designer. So you did traditional graphic design like photo
Yeah,
manipulation,
I
copy,
did. Yeah, photo manipulation, type layouts, setting
wow.
out types. Like, because after I left soccer, I mean, I also worked for Accessories to Die For. But that was like freelance,
What do
remote.
you call
Worked
it?
for Accessories to Die For.
Accessories to die for. Okay,
Accessories to Die
okay,
For.
okay.
Yeah, worked. And then I worked also Isidra. They were creating like assets, more of like for HNI companies. Things like journals, covers for their books and things like that. So I had to like do a lot of like working with typography, making sure whatever designs I did, were in line with what the printers would produce. So I learned a lot there on the job, and I learned a lot on like both of the jobs.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, I think everything, now when, taking that, because aside like from like the artworks thing that I do, there's also like I guess like the commission stuff. So maybe somebody wants to like create, I don't know, like typography for their website, or they want to create like I don't know, sports illustrations,
Mm,
or maybe even like covers. So that whole ability to get a brief, break it down, and communicate your ideas effectively
wow.
to whoever the client is. I think like my experience in like architecture
Mm,
school as well as
there
agency
you go.
work, and
Yeah,
like
I was gonna
really
ask
helps
that
me.
for sure. I was gonna ask that. Like, what was the impact of like studying architecture? Like, was there anything that you applied from architecture school in your, creative process or in your work or your style in like what you
Hmm.
do? Yeah, was there
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
can you
there's
tell
a
us more
lot.
about that?
There's a lot. Even like working, like when you're designing like buildings, and they tell you to like work with a grid. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it also like cuts across like graphic design. Like maybe if you're like designing like the user interface for like a website, or you're trying to like lay out text for print, that also like
Mm-hmm.
applies. It also applies even in your painting, like how you arrange like the visual elements on the page to try and like tell a story.
There
It's
you go.
really, really, your grades. And there was also like one thing in particular that, I think one of the lecturers, is it Professor Kedela, I forget which one now, is always saying like work from whole to particular. So
Hmm.
back then, like university, like it's not uncommon for you to like, how it is now, like Bobo sheets, they just render, they just
No,
render
no, 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 don't
just to
take
try
me
and like
back. Don't take
bamboozle,
me back there.
try and like
Yeah,
bamboozle like the lecturers,
yeah.
but
For any architecture
it's
student
like,
listening to this,
yo,
you know what we're talking about.
like,
The bubble
yo,
sheets.
you can't just, yeah,
Mm,
you can't just, you're bringing up all these flashy renderings and all, like,
mm,
show us your 2D, show us like how this design, like what's like the whole conceptualization, like your whole bubble diagram. What are your case studies? What did you pull from it? How did you arrive here? You can't just, and like the same thing also like happens, like, because even like in fine arts,
mm.
um, I mean, I guess I'll speak for myself. Maybe they're like artists that just, I guess, wake up and like,
Do
just
things.
work based on vibes,
Yeah,
and I'm sure there are successful artists that do that.
yeah.
But I don't take that approach. So like for me, I like to, have like an idea of like somewhat where my work is going and what the final product is going to look
Hmm.
like. So
I've seen some things that you've done
from doing
like
all
that.
those scribbles, and even because you can't just jump at it. There's like steps to go about things. So for me, that I work with like figures a lot. Um,
Exactly.
I remember like back then. in uni. Because when I feel like apart from my fine art teacher, yeah, I didn't mention this, but apart from my fine art teacher, I think also another point where that was very instrumental in my growth as an artist is just, getting, first of all, open to the world of like digital art and just working with soft. I mean, we use softwares in architecture, but more of like 3D softwares, but,
Mhm.
getting into the world of like Photoshop, Illustrator, and, joining threadless community. So, threadless, I mean, the threadless is still operating back like currently, but like back then I was really active then submitting like designs. I mean, I never got selected, and rightfully so. My skill sets back then, yeah, I mean, not to be self-deprecating or anything, but my
Yeah.
skill sets back then, was not a level. But the good thing is that, they have like, so take for example like Nickelodeon or Nickelodeon, Marvel, or other like big brands. They want to like have like maybe events, or they are trying to like do an activation. So they reach out to Threadless because Threadless um, mainly like creates artworks for like merch. So from t-shirts, pullover hoodies, tote bags, and things like that. So to reach out to the community there, submit designs. The designs are voted on, and at the end of the day, if your design is chosen, I think back then like it was 2012, 13. Like back then, like the first prize money was like $1,000, I think thousand to $1,500, and there were like other incentives as well
Mm.
for the winners. And so you see like people working on a particular brief, and you see how different people approach it. So from the newbies, and obviously they were the top dogs then, and you know that these guys are like pros, like you
Mhm.
can't even like touch the hem of,
Cards.
but that was, I feel, just because like architecture was like more of like archi work. Nobody was like we're not doing juries based on like graphic design or
Yeah.
ideas for illustrations that go on like merchandise. And so that was like a space that I felt complemented that, because like I said, you see people that are on your level, you see people that are way higher than you, and they have like
Mm.
forums. So if you have like an issue, you can submit your designs for critique, they give you
Mm.
instant feedback. So I feel like Threadless really, really played a big part in, my growth. Also, just getting into the world of like Photoshop, Illustrator. Yeah, shout out to Tolu Ayinla, because I got my first tablet from her like
Really?
back in architecture school, and that also like opened because like prior to that I was just working with my mouse, and it can be kind of
Mm.
difficult if you're
Right.
sketching, so
Yeah.
that opened like another avenue for me to explore my work digitally. And as somebody that is a student, it's kind of like expensive to get like paints if you want to work traditionally. And so like with digital, you have like all the tools and like millions of colors at your disposal. So there was that. But going back to like the whole working from whole to particular, you can like skip steps. So there was a period in time that I already got in the tablet. I had like everything. I was like, dude, like there are things missing in my artwork. So the fundamentals. I was like, really, because everybody keeps on saying fundamentals, like working on your perspective, compositions, lights and all. Like
Who were the people saying that?
you
Where were
need
you getting that feedback from?
just like when I go on like YouTube and you're hearing like once you
Okay.
start hearing industry experts, so the guys that have like experience talking it,
Yeah.
like just be humble and know that like
Fair.
they are not just yet they are not
Fair.
just saying it. And so yeah, I knew that
So
I
you were
had
you were
like
you were taking
issues
like
with like yeah,
retrospect. You were
yeah,
taking a
yeah.
self-reflection
So
from your work.
exactly. So I even
Yeah.
had to like stop using digital for a while, because
Mm.
like whatever you know how to do on your paper. So example, if you're drawing, like it's like whatever you know how to do on your paper that translates to digital. Like
True.
if you get the fanciest Wacom tablet or the latest iPad, you're not
Mm.
magically going to be better if you don't have
True
like
that.
the fundamentals. So I had to like stop. There was even a period in time that I was just doing is just drawing boxes and drawing skulls in like 3D space, because I knew that I was doing like lots of figure drawing. So um being able to like effectively rotate a box or draw figures from different perspectives
Mm.
would also help you and not limit you when you're thinking of like ideas. So I don't know, say you can like approach, let's say for example, not even like a painting, you wanted to do like the hero image for like a landing page of a website and you to like do sports illustration. So you don't necessarily need to approach it from a front head-on view
Mm-hmm.
perspective. It can be like an upshot, a worm's eye view. Just the ability to manipulate objects in 3D space. I feel like that also helps. But again, it's like to anybody, it's like boring. Like you don't want to start drawing. Like why am I drawing book? Why am I drawing? You want to get to the good stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
you need to like have at least some knowledge in that aspect to be able to effectively transition or get to like that space. So definitely working from whole to particular is one that I still try and like keep in mind even until now.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's a lot to even take in. A couple things. I mean, have jumped out to me from the last things you've said. I think one of them is the process and the things that go on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know, the boring stuff, the learning, like the studying, the hours on YouTube, the practicing. What does it take to become a successful artist, or I mean, to become someone who is at least, a good artist?
Hmm.
Yeah, a successful artist. What does it take for anyone listening to this and think and is probably on a journey or thinking of having a career in illustration or in creative like illustration or draw or art, like physical art drawing, like what would you say to that person? How would you advise
Mm,
the person?
yeah, I think there are like multiple skill sets that come to mind. Um, I guess one of them is also like being humble enough to like ask for feedback
Mm,
from your peers, and being able to like take whatever feedback you are getting from them, not just only the positives, but also the negatives, and just know that it's feedback. Like really no hard feelings, and it's now left to you to be able to like sieve out what you feel you can add to your game, to your art or graphic design game, or what you can like take away. Aside from that, I mean, I guess obviously being being hardworking should be like a given. I
yeah.
don't know, except you like come from like I don't know, yeah, like a trust fund, yeah, like a trust fund kid or something like that. But yeah, I mean, you need to be hardworking. You also need to like I I think to an extent you need to be okay with being by yourself. You need to be okay, but and like being by yourself, I mean just being in your own space and working, because you need that. I feel like you need that period to just block off. I mean, I'm not saying like don't obviously you need to like interact with people, but that space, just having that zone where you're just like locked in,
Mhm.
working on the project. You also need to be like okay with like monotony, because like to an extent it's like monotonous, but I mean it's part of like the whole process.
Wow.
Nobody wants to like wake up and start drawing like 30, filling up 20, 30 pages with like boxes,
Hmm.
drawing boxes in different
You did
perspectives,
that.
or for example, yeah, I mean I did that. I mean if you check my stories you probably see like
I
lots
do.
of
I do
that. I
see
mean the ones that
lots
are
of boxes. Yeah.
also like the research. I mean whatever this there's also like the research phase that you need to like be patient in, because like
Mm.
again I mentioned with like, because like when I was reading all those like I guess back then journals, articles, just trying to like get myself up to speed. I mean, it wasn't like the most fun, it wasn't like the most fun thing for
Hmm.
me to do, but it was
Right.
like, I knew that,
You needed
you
to do
need
that.
to, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there were aspects that were fun, but at the point in time, it's like, dude, when can we just, just get to like the good stuff? But, I think everything like takes a bit of time, because
Hmm.
like even now in like the new work that I'm working on, like it was a personal project, but it was centered around like the Yoruba pantheon and the Orishas. I've had to like lots of um soak up lots of information and material. So from reading books, again, I'm also like finding the same issue that I had like back then, whereby there's not like I'm seeing like more of like documented materials from the Afro-Brazilian people, if I'm to be very
Mm.
honest, as opposed to like the actual
Indigenous Yoruba
Nigerians.
people.
So there's that. I have to like start reading up and getting myself up to speed about like the characters and what I want to like do with them. Also just follow like actual people that practice the Yoruba religion. So like Ifa priests, like Oshun. But just because I need to like
You
soak up
you
as much
follow
information in
you
as
follow them. How do you follow them? On
you
Instagram.
just on, yeah, just Instagram,
They're Ifa
YouTube. Like
Priest on
I have like
Instagram.
say, yeah, they're Ifa priests on Instagram. They're yeah, Oshun. There are
Mad.
pages that are dedicated to like Yoruba culture, religion. At least the ones that I cannot pick up, like maybe if they're like speaking in only Yoruba or um, um Brazilian Portuguese, at least I can like the visuals that they are putting up. So I'm just trying to like soak up as much
Mm.
information because like obviously I'm not going to know as much as maybe a child that grew up as I don't know that grew up in an Ifa priest household that they do
Mm.
like, maybe like, they're
Yeah.
like
So you
deeply
have to
rooted in
immerse
that. But
yourself.
at least, and try and like as much as possible in as short time as possible, gain as much information because obviously it gets to a point that you have to like put the project out there. You can't be working on it. I mean, technically you can work on a project for like 40, 50 years, but hey, at some point you just need to like put the project out there, move on to the next thing, or if you're like going to like iterate or on that particular thing. So there's that research phase. I mean, it's fun. It's fun, but it's also like boring in a way for me. I don't know, maybe like another designer, you know, that might be like the sweet phase for them, but it's fun and sometimes it can be boring because you
Mm.
also want to get to the good stuff,
So the
designing
sweet
like the
parts.
flashy
Yeah.
final thing, but
Renderings.
you
Mm.
can't get there without having that.
Yeah.
And you need to be fine with making iterations. Like
Hmm.
I can't like I don't know about like other people, but for me,
Leave other
bro,
people.
I do like tons of like
Hmm.
iterations, and I know that I will arrive at a design, that I'm content with.
Hmm.
So I won't just do like one or two. I'll do one, change this, add this, multiple. So like with this one that I'm working on, I've done like well over, I'll say like over 700 iterations, well over 700 iterations. And I'm not joking. And I know it's like well over 700 because I think when you're working on Procreate, you have like a set number of
700.
layers that's well over 700 actually. 700 is just putting it. But at the end of the day, I know that, whatever final thing I put out, you know, at least to the best of my abilities at that point in time, that's pretty much the best design
Hmm.
that I could have come with because like sometimes and you also need is it like you need like a period to like reflect. So sometimes I feel like for me in particular I feel like some like that I guess like your design slaps when maybe like you do it now, you sleep, you sleep, you come back in like maybe like 3 weeks, 4 months, 3 months from when you did the iteration and you're like, okay, there's really nothing I can like add to this, subtract from this, then you know that, I guess you're kind of like hitting a sweet spot. Then you also need to be very iterative in terms of like especially like as a designer, in terms of like your process, because you're not going to like land at that perfect idea from the first sketch you put out. Sometimes it might be
Hmm.
like the first sketch still slaps, but from my own personal um you know experience, have to like do multiple iterations, do multiple iterations. You have to like explore the idea as much as you can to arrive at the best possible solution. So for example, like the design that I'm working on for the current cards I'm doing, I've done well over 700 iterations, and I think 700, like well over
Can't get
700,
over
because I
that.
mean, I know it's well over 700 because like Procreate allows you, I think about like with the art board that I'm using, I think about like 300, 300 or so, and I have like what 54 art boards that I'm working on. So I've done well over 700 iterations, well over 700 iterations. And I know that at the end of the day, I'm going to arrive
It's
at
crazy.
the best possible result, at least to the best of my abilities. Um, because like sometimes you just sleep, wake up, and then you're like, okay,
Mm.
what if I change this thing? What if, and then you try it out and you're like,
Mm.
oh, okay, this makes sense. Then they're like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, but what if like add this thing from the very, and then the thing just continues morphing, morphing, morphing till you get like the
I
final
think
thing.
they
I
spoke
also
about.
think,
So sorry, Osaze. Sorry to just
sure,
quickly cut you short. I
sure,
think they spoke about something like this where there's a part of design where like there's a potential for you to keep like tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking,
hmm
but there's a tendency
hmm
for designers to like keep tweaking and never actually like
yeah,
get it
iteration
done,
limbo,
like,
yeah,
or
yeah,
just
iteration limbo.
keep doing it, like, so like how do
hmm
you get yourself out of that loop of always
You can't,
iterating, like always making changes? How do you get yourself
you
out of
can,
that loop?
you can't. I guess like
So
life and
how do you get the
timelines.
projects delivered
Yeah,
or done?
because yeah,
Yeah.
I said you have to, because like you can't, like I said you can't, but then that's when it comes to like project deadline, because like if client is giving you like, I don't know, 2 weeks to work on a project, I'll say, oh, yeah, I was iterating.
Well.
I don't know about like other people, but me, I don't like giving like excuses. Like if you say this is the timeline, I like delivering my work as
Mm,
that particular
yeah.
timeline. I don't want to start, because like um, working in an agency, I also like, got to know that, we're not playing games here. Like everybody has like their own thing they need to like, work on, and they also like have their own internal team, so maybe somebody else's like job might rely on you delivering that thing as at when due, or, maybe if you don't deliver it as at when due, they lose like a large chunk of their revenue. So like we're not playing games here. You need to like, get the product out as fast as you can. That doesn't mean you won't iterate, but at some point in time, you need to like shut the door and say, okay, yeah, I think I've gotten it up to a level that, it's okay, average, above average, and then you move on to the
But
next thing. Like
okay.
there's really no time. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no time with like
Yeah.
agency work, which is why I don't really like judging designers, or like I don't like judging designers or artists based on like commission projects, because there are lots
Mm,
of things that go on in the background, and people don't know. Like sometimes maybe you just see like a rebranding and you see like, oh, okay, why did this person do this, blah blah blah, backlash, this thing, design communities and design overlords, everybody
mm,
starts giving like their opinion. Fine, but it's like, do you know how much time
mm-hmm.
that designer had? Do you know whether the person calling the shots, whether the designer actually like produced, an effective, solution or strategy, and then, the guy at the top just says, hey, do this, and let's call
You
it a day.
turned it
Because that
down.
happens. That really
Mm,
happens. And not a lot of designers are in the position to like walk away. Like not everybody can do it, because like dude, we
yeah.
have like families, people have like families to feed, they have like their
You have to
lives,
feed your
and
family. Mm-hmm.
exactly. And so I don't really like judging people based on like, you know, commission projects that they do, which is why, because there was a time that I went to like one of all this design, I've forgotten the name now, but like somebody said something that, because I think he was like one of the people working with Pepsi at the time, was like the art director, was like, if somebody comes up with a design, I mean, I'm probably paraphrasing now, but if you see like any of like these ad campaigns and you see that like it's really, really great, like really, really, tip your hat off to like the team, because sometimes it's really, really hard to like get buy-in from them. And so if they're able to like pull off some things, like is what commending the person. It's now it's a different ball game. Like if I have like my own personal
Mm.
project, I can like it's all on me. Like everything falls on me. Like bring the criticisms, everything like
Yeah,
is on me. There's no external factor.
it is.
And that's not to say because
Mm.
there are some clients that give you like free reign. Hey, do whatever. They don't really. But there are also occasions whereby you need to strike a balance. So going back to the how do you know when to stop based on like your timelines, and know what time you have. Just make sure you iterate enough to get it to, I guess, like a minimum viable product, and then you keep it moving with your own. Because like for my own project, um I just get to a point because like there are certain assets now that I've designed, and because I think I've started this thing like I think I started designing like beginning of this year. And like there are certain assets that, I sleep, wake up like after like 2, 3 months. I'm like, yeah, there's really nothing I can think of to change now. So that's when I start to know that okay, you know, this is like
Mm.
reaching its final phase to me.
It's
To
time.
another designer, that might just be, maybe
Okay.
the starting
Okay.
point. To another designer, like where I am, like where I started from,
Mm.
can be, like this is perfect. But that's it. And then after a while, you also need to know that, you have like other things to do. You can't spend like 30 years, 40 years. I mean, you can, but hey, we have like other things to do. And it also cuts across like when I'm working on, even a painting, because that's also like question that like if you're working traditionally, working doing like gallery stuff, people also ask like how do you know when a painting is finished? Like I don't know. Like
Mm.
I just feel like it's finished when I look at it and I feel, there's nothing else I can add or take away that will give it more meaning. So if I start adding stuff, I know it's just me dabbling and just trying to like, I have like a particular like in my head what I consider like a
Mm.
finished work, but then that's based on me and like my own
Mm.
acquired taste in terms of like design and like influences and like what I consider to be okay. This is the fidelity of the image that it needs to get to in terms of like I don't know line work, composition, and I feel like okay, this is possible. After then, like you're just dabbling on, and it's just what does Christoph Niemann call it? I think he said like design vanity. There's something called like design vanity, whereby you're just going into like this. Like, come on, you've gotten like the core
You,
idea out there,
it's
exactly,
dark hole.
exactly, and so yeah, that's pretty much it. You can only try your best and leave, I guess, leave the rest. I also think that
Mm.
in terms of like, because like sometimes it's like maybe you have like one hit, I don't know, in terms of like design, and then you're trying to like replicate that. It's not really in
Mm.
your, yeah, it's not really in you don't have like the country. You can only do your, I feel like artists can only do their best and leave the rest. You can't,
Mm.
like nobody can say, "Hey, I'm painting the next Mona Lisa, and this is going to," like you don't know. You don't know which of them. You might have one Mona
We
Lisa, you might
hit.
not have another one. Yeah, it's just like the same thing. I'm
Exactly.
sure it cuts across like the different fields in the arts. I think maybe
Absolutely. Even
even like with
content.
pen. Exactly, because like maybe a strategy person is you've had like a viral, campaign, and okay,
Mm-hmm.
another agency wants to engage your services. You can't 100% put your neck on the line that whatever you use all your whole design and marketing,
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that you've acquired over time to try and
Yep.
like get, but you cannot say this thing is going to be
Yeah.
viral. You cannot, like there's that element
Mm-hmm.
of, I feel like, I don't see luck, but like maybe like time and chance that
Yes.
like comes into play.
Yep.
You can't really
Yep.
control that. You've gotten yourself
It's so hard
through the
to
years.
replicate
You've
success, especially like one time. Like I don't know if you know. I'm making a random example now. Just a rush of idea to my head or example that just came to my mind. I don't know if you know this content creator called Desney. Yes, Desney. There was a particular campaign that trended. It was crazy. This bold campaign that they did, like
Mhm.
they used like a Rolls Royce, I think it was Rolls Royce, to carry people, and the guy was like sitting in the back seat, and he's actually an Edo guy. And then one of his uncles, like,
Okay.
I don't know if you saw it. Did you see it?
Okay. I've seen it on
You
TikTok.
definitely have
You know,
seen
one
it.
of his
Yeah, yeah,
uncles
you
called
definitely
him.
have seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then his
So
uncle said like, we don't
is
do
it the
this
one that had
in
to
this
do with like
family.
village? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. His uncle was like, we don't enter limo, we
yeah.
don't enter, and it was like, oh, it's not his
No.
own, no, that is a, what, it wasn't boat, it was
Mm-hmm.
in drive, I
Yeah,
think.
I've seen
I
it.
think it was in drive. Sorry, my bad. So
Yeah,
yeah,
one of
like,
all these
I, I,
cab hailing
I
services.
think like that particular campaign like brought in so much attention, and because it went viral, it was crazy. And I think since then, I think from what I see, it's like he's been trying to like replicate that same concept, but it can't make that kind of hit like as
Mm-hmm.
much as the first one. So just to give an example of people replicating, I can give more
Yeah,
examples like Wizkid, Essence, and then Made in
yeah.
Lagos trying to replicate the sound. So I get your point makes is very clear
Even John,
about replic.
even
Mm,
John Legend, even John
yeah.
Legend talked about it in one of his songs.
Mm,
That all of me. Do you remember?
yeah.
I think he had like one song, "All of Me."
Mm.
Then is it John Legend or so? Is it John Legend or Donald Glover? Song like "All of Me," all of me,
Hello, John Legend.
all of
Yeah.
you. You're my
Mhm.
yeah. So he was on an interview, and they were talking about like hits and all, and he was like, he had like that, but with subsequence, he wasn't able to like replicate that exact like the whole virality of the song and all. And
Mm.
it's just something that you can't really replicate. You can just only just do your best work and keep it pushing.
Yep.
And Christoph Niemann, great illustrator and designer, also said something along those lines. You can only do your work and get it up to like a certain as because like over the years you've built up skill sets, your abilities, your eye for details and what looks good and not, has grown. And so now you can only do and get it up to a particular extent. But that little thing that takes it to the next level of legendary, is not really within your control as much as,
Mm.
you try and like, if you like, use all the rule of thirds, use design principles, golden eye, golden this, golden whatever, you can
Yeah.
only try your best and, put it out there. But
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's so true. That's so true. I feel like what work would you say like is your has been like your most trendy or viral or I feel like there's one particular one that's like that people if people like
well,
think Osaze, yeah, they would think of this particular project. What work was that?
man, I don't really know.
I know it.
But I feel
I know
like
it.
I feel like I
But
feel like there's
but
there's
I
there's
want
like
you to come
two.
from
I feel
you.
like there's two. I feel like there's
Okay.
two. So like there's like the Fela series that I did. There was one particular illustration that he was like sitting on like the Iron Throne. So I think that one,
Hmm.
because I mean I've seen like people making like multiple replicas of it,
Replica
selling
of
like people
it.
have sent me like images, selling it on the streets, like framed arts or merch. I've seen like
How do you
somebody
feel when you see
designing it on their I mean, I'm like, I mean, like all the best to them because like
that?
especially like here in Nigeria, I mean, because
Hmm.
like things are hard for like creators, I guess like rather that than maybe you killing somebody or abducting them and
Mm.
demanding for ransom money,
Well, we always comparing to the
But
worst still. We're always comparing to the
I mean,
worst. But yeah, what's
I'm sorry to like bring that, but I'm just like,
yeah, no,
I'm just
sure.
like
I get
saying,
what you
and there's
mean.
also like, I think like here, like most especially like when you're starting, like maybe somebody like starting their clothing line, they're not going to be like maybe somebody like in school, maybe uni, they're not going to be very discerning to say like who owns the copyright for this. Just like may I go on top Pinterest to just gather a couple of these things and take it to your
Hmm.
printer. Obviously, the printer is
Yeah,
not going to run a Google search that do you own the
no,
copyright? All right,
who doesn't
cool.
care?
You'll print it. So
Yeah.
there's that. There's like sites outside that I've also seen the work, but that's one one that I think, then there's also like the cards, because I feel like the that's the first bidding cards that I've done. I feel like,
Ever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Have
that's
there been
actually
anything
like
like
the
that
first
before?
play.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think I've seen
there
anything like
has no, there has, like,
really?
yeah, yeah, and I didn't even know until like I was like at the tail end of like the project, which, maybe
Wow.
that's probably even a good thing,
By Nigerian
because,
artist?
maybe my um so the guy, I forget his name, but I know he's like a Yoruba guy. I don't know his name, but maybe like after the
Okay.
call I can like look it up and send you. But yeah, he had actually like done something on like around Benin, But I felt like my own was like, it wasn't like exactly similar to it. It was like a different approach and of how like I went
Mm,
about that. But I felt like that one, at least, like, feedback based on like people here in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, they kind of also like really resonated with that. And um at least those are like the two that come to mind. Maybe there might be like some paintings, but maybe I don't think they have had like as much reach as those two, but I might be wrong. Maybe I have to
that's
like
true.
look at the insights again. But at least that's pretty
Right.
much what comes to mind. I don't know whether you
That's
have
right.
like
That's what
something you have like something else.
I feel like I feel like there was this particular painting you did that had one of the I think it was the queen that was on a horse, right? I
Hmm.
think that was very I think that was one for me personally, I feel like that was one of like the projects that kind of because I think for that project you kind of showed like the process, like you did like a stop motion thing or something. I don't know. I think you did like some process of
Hmm.
behind the scenes, maybe some images because it was like a carousel that kind of showed like how you composed the the imaging, like combining all the references and everything. And I feel like
Hmm.
it was something that resonated with a lot of people. Like it had a lot of like influences. You had like, you had references from, using like even at some point where you had your
Okay.
head in some of the you know,
Okay, yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
No,
like
I know the one you're talking about. I know the one. Yeah, I
yeah.
think as far as like paintings go, those are at least based on
Mm,
like what Instagram says. That's like also part of like the top one based on like reach
top
and like
one,
shares
for
and things
sure.
like that. But
For sure.
um, I don't know. It's like you just do your thing and you can't control. Like in your head, maybe you might have an idea. You
Yeah.
may think, okay, one might be like a hit,
Mm,
and you put it out there. It's like crickets, like, and another one, maybe. I mean, that's also not to say that you don't put in your best, but maybe when
mm,
you finish one, you're like, okay, like, you know. I guess this doesn't slap like the other one, but then you put it out, and I guess people kind of gravitate towards that. So,
towards it. Interesting. Okay, so I want to take a bit of a different direction in terms of my question now. And I think I want to understand like what your I know you've been like your journey has been like a bit it feels like some part of it is like accidental, like you weren't really planning to like go this direction. Something led to something that led to something, something that led to something,
mhm,
which is fine. But I feel like above just landing in this space, I feel like you've put some intentional effort into like not just becoming an artist, but like becoming creating projects that actually resonate with people and that leave a
mhm,
mark, right? And so, like, my question is like, what is your why? Like, why are you doing these things? Because some of them, I feel like they might not like bring like immediate monetary reward. So I feel
mhm.
like there would definitely be, you probably have a reason above just the remuneration, which is great,
Yeah.
that you're doing these things. So what would you say it is?
I mean, remuneration is definitely really important. I mean, not, yeah, just, yeah, disclaimer.
Just
Okay,
to put that out there,
not
yeah,
that, but I mean,
yeah,
obviously, like, it's not, everything. And, I'm not just like saying that for like cameras and all. Like, because, like, I mean, when you first start out, it's like, you're just hopping on any project like, okay, there's this job, I have this, like, don't even like I'm doing it. But like after a
Mm,
while, you're like begin to like select like projects that, okay, I'm gonna work on this, I'm gonna work on that. Somebody like says, oh, okay, hey, I want to like collaborate with you. Like if
mm,
there's no if it's not a good fit, like I don't know about like other people, but if I don't think it's a good fit, I'm not doing it. Or if I don't like buy into like the story of what you want to like, I'm just not doing it.
mm,
Because like there's only so many projects you can, work on, and like after a while, you start thinking about, um, I guess the ones that would bring the most impact. I don't know about like other people, but me, start thinking about like, what do I feel like would be more impactful, or what do I think, it's important to like work on now. Like if you start looking for the negative space or like the white space to like navigate in within like your region. So I'll say, for me, it's at least now compared to like when I started, like now is more in terms of like what I feel is impactful and what I feel resonates with me and like and aligns with the work that I've been doing. Um, that's pretty much it for me. And you just keep putting out projects until like one day, one day you die. So
Why?
yeah,
But
because
yeah.
I guess like people don't like talking about it, but like at some point, you're going to like die. As I
Mm,
mentioned like earlier in the video, like the Mr. Eraboy Mopai, rest in peace. But like the image that he did, maybe if I didn't even see that image, maybe I won't have even, I guess, done any maybe figurative things like you'd see around like Benin. Maybe I won't have done it. I don't know, but I know looking at that image, definitely sparked something in me. At some point, start thinking about like impact and long term. I mentioned earlier about like the work that I saw from Mr. Eraboy Mopai, who's like arguably one of the greatest artists that has ever come out from Edo State. I mean, he's dead now, God rest his soul, but you know that image that I saw of his painting really, inspired me to like create like my own versions or iterations on that. Maybe if I hadn't seen it, maybe I wouldn't have even like done anything or even like be thinking in that direction. But I saw that and that inspired me. And like even like whether design, whatever design work I put or painting, I just feel like it's there and you're not going to live forever. At some point, I would hope that people build on that and like create things that are even like better or greater than that. Somebody can look at the works now and say, "Yo, I don't like what this guy is doing. This is trash," which is valid and good. Like everybody has their own opinion. And then that might say, okay, the person might say, oh, why didn't this guy do it from this angle? And voila, they've created their own. They've looked at maybe my stuff and they've looked at like the white space or what I didn't do or what I could have done better. And we just keep on building and building. You can only do so much after a point in time, like you leave the earth. And I don't know, hopefully some people remember, the works that you've done, you know, but
yeah.
you can only do your best and leave the rest.